What's up, everybody? Welcome to FoundFlix. On this Ending Explained, we're looking at Rob Zombie's quite underrated The Lords of Salem, where radio DJ Heidi is sent a box containing a mysterious record, a gift from the Lords. The sounds within the grooves trigger flashbacks of Salem's violent past. Is Heidi going mad, or are the Lords back to take revenge on the town? Being different certainly is the biggest factor at play here, because The Lords of Salem feels completely divorced from everything else in Zombie's catalog. There's no murderous psycho hillbillies or grindhouse grind. It's weird to ever use the word restraint regarding Zombie, but it does feel like a conscious creative choice was made to make something much more beholden to the psychological thrillers of the 70s than his typical influences. While it might stick out amongst his catalog, I feel that Lords of Salem is unjustly maligned and deserves a lot more credit for how much it works. Even Sherry is pretty good here, playing an actual character for a change, and the cast is also filled with a ton of horror genre stalwarts that add a lot to the movie as well. It's a love letter to a particular slice of the genre, and I truly didn't know Zombie had it in him. So let's check out The Lords of Salem, breaking down the story, including what we learn about Margaret's Coven along with their big plan, and explaining the quite wild ending. We first meet Heidi listening to the radio, the announcer discussing how accentuating the experience of pleasure diminishes the desire for pain. Sure, if you say so, buddy. She begins nodding off and then sees a goat. It gives way to a man Hawthorne scribbling in his diary. During the age of the Salem witch trials, he has set his sights on a local coven run by Margaret Morgan. He decries her blasphemous music that echoes in his mind, driving him to the point of insanity. More on that later. He vows to God that he will destroy all persons who choose to align with Satan. Margaret and her gang are busy doing exactly that. In the name of Satan, she croaks, ruler of the earth and leader of their coven. She beckons him to open the gates of hell and come forth from his blessed abyss. All hail the unholy Father, they chant. Make your presence known this night. Some others shout out dismissals of Jesus and his book of lies. Marge tells him to get ready to desecrate your false bodies, ordering them to show themselves. They all strip nude, cackling and screaming, raising their hands towards the sky. They join hands, again declaring God to be no good. They're all about Lucifer dancing around the fire. The goat just watching on like, what the hell are you ladies doing? Or I approve. We follow a quite eventful week in the life of Heidi, who is startled awake from her dream by the radio. She sluggishly gets her day going, remarking Jesus at a reflection. When grabbing the paper, she spots a new tenant down the hall. She tells them hello, and they rudely slam the door shut, seeing it's unit number 5. She comes across the super Lacey checking her mail and brings up the new tenant. Lacey disagrees. She wishes she could rent that unit. It's a total dog despite its cheap price. Heidi is baffled. She just saw someone, and Lace maintains the place is still empty despite what she literally just saw. We learn that Heidi works for a local radio station, WIQX, hosting along with 2 other dudes both named Herman, but one has the nickname Whitey. See if you can figure out which one. They're interviewing a Count Gorgon, and the show is definitely your typical radio chat fest with lame jokes and an abundance of sound effects. The Count is quite intense, rambling about his philosophy to expose the lies of the church whores and Jesus, the true bringer of death. They laugh at how serious he is, and he continues that he is not a sheep of God, but a mighty goat. They're like, why a goat? And according to him, a goat has free will, and is thusly always punished. God is the unholy pig, and we serve the butcher. His rambling leaves everyone like, okay, cool, dude. They keep the show going late into the night, and afterwards dole out some celebratory drinks. A bit tipsy now, the receptionist has a weird package for Heidi, a box from a band simply called The Lords. Whitey already knows it has to be shit, and she shoots back just for that. She's gonna take it home and listen to it right now. He offers her a ride, but she's worried about puking, so she's gonna walk it off, already seeing a little bit of chemistry between the two there. The other Herman, on the other hand, is in a rush to get home before he gets another DWS. That's right, driving while sexy. It is a serious crime. Whitey does end up taking her home, and he puts on a weird stomping folk record. She joins in, doing some weird hippie writhing / dancing, I suppose. The music is heard out in the hall, returning to that mysterious unit number 5. They discuss Herman's wearing of a toupee, and both agree it's got to go. He looks better bald, but he won't listen to anybody. Dead air, she knows, pointing out the lack of music playing. She suggests they listen to the Lords, and when putting it on the platter, can already recognize the same witch's symbol from the opening. It begins to play, a strange instrumental full of pounding, repetitive noise. Heidi appears physically affected by the song, and it continues on, blasting her back to the past. Margaret reveals their initial plan to breed a new world with the blessed spawn of glory. They have a girl captured and jam a blade into her business, soon extracting a baby. Margaret speaks in tongues, staring intently at the newborn. She gives it a curse cursory lick. That's good, baby. Or perhaps not, spitting its vile taste sickens me, and commands the others to remove this mortal, hideous creature. She lets the others down. We have failed again, and spits on the baby some more for good measure. What did the baby do? The song gives way to white noise, and Heidi is all messed up, murmuring that she's tired. Whitey relents to leave, and she offers the couch. He's taken aback. The couch? Yeah, the couch, she confirms. She has some toast and heads to bed. When passing by the bathroom, Margaret's spirit is terrifyingly lingering there, implying that despite being dead for several hundred years at this point, she is not about to give up on her master plan. On Tuesday, Heidi attends an NA meeting, understanding that she is an addict in recovery. It's time for another show with more inane banter, such as Herman saying that he's going gluten-free, despite it being pointed out that he literally just ate a grilled cheese, no aspect of which is gluten-free. They have an author, Francis Matias, on to discuss the appropriate book, Satan's Last Stand, the truth about the Salem witch trials. Heidi compliments his picture on the back, and Francis is flattered and flustered, calling her chest tattoo mesmerizing. He catches himself and pleads with his wife to not change the locks. They inquire about the book, how many people were actually executed during the trials. 26, including those accused in prison. Whitey is disappointed in the low number, and Heidi is curious. Are there still real witches around nowadays? Francis informs them that there is a large Wiccan population here, a positive Earth-centered based religion, but as for classic ones, he counters that there were no actual classic witches, but they were all rather women affected by psychosis brought upon by a delusional state of mind. Let's see if you're right about that, Francis. They move on to their trash or smash segment and decide to utilize the Lord's song. Heidi has no idea where it came from, and Herman assumes that they must be from around here, dubbing them the Lords of Salem. As soon as playing the song, we see several women around town listening to the radio, and they too appear almost possessed or put into a hypnosis by the tune, along with a wild Barbara Crampton sighting, literally in one shot of the movie for some reason. I do know a bunch of scenes did get cut during production, and I wonder if that was the same for her character. After a little bit more research, turns out that was the case. Francis is curious about the song, and it came just for Heidi, even being addressed to her real name, leaving him quite intrigued. At home with his wife, he wants to hear the song again, and luckily she recorded the show. He admits something about it upset him, specifically the name, Lords of Salem. Where has he heard that before? After the show is done, they each head their separate ways, Heidi practicing French lessons on the walk home. As soon as she walks in the door, Lace accosts her, demanding that she come and meet her sisters. She agrees, but needs to feed the dog first. When turning the light on, Margaret is back, standing up in the corner. She drinks some wine with the other ladies, meeting Sunny and Megan. She learns that Megan is a real deal psychic. She sees things deeply into the world beyond. Heidi is curious and allows her to do a palm reading. She focuses in on one line that she says is the only one that matters, the line of fate. Heidi pushes her to learn her destiny, but Megan corrects the two are not the same. Destiny can be changed, but fate leaves you with no choice. It's predetermined by stronger forces than ourselves. Well, sorry Heidi, that's what you're dealing with right now. Heidi grows uncomfortable as Megan urges her to make peace with her subconscious desires. She doesn't know which desires exactly, and she spits the wicked thoughts burning in your head and exploding in the juices between your legs, the darkness in your soul, and her only reason to exist. Heidi has had enough and leaves confused and upset. Out in the hall, Margaret is still overseeing things, strutting by undetected. Heidi wakes up in the middle of the night to an old movie with a dude wearing a mask. She raids the fridge for some water and suddenly hears Troy barking. She finds him right outside the door for number 5, still barking and vigorously wiggling his tail. She drags him back inside, confused how he even got out in the first place. And it must have been Margaret that let him out. As they start to leave, the door begins to creak open. Heidi peers back and it opens wider to total darkness, luring her inside. She cautiously tiptoes closer, still only seeing total blackness within. She reaches the threshold and looks around before stepping inside, and the door swings closed behind her. There only appears to be a glowing red neon cross in the room. The electricity hums and she reaches out towards it with both hands. Then there's something behind her with hairy arms that growls, some kind of beast. Still focused on the cross, we flash to the Coven wielding stick pitchforks, and a big beast dude steps forward, presumably the same one that's here now. She lowers her hands and the creature has vanished. The door then opens and she steps out, hearing a voice whispering, "Sister, feel the earth, taste the air. Do you hear the sounds of the clouds and the scent of the wind all becoming one? The hordes of the deceivers are gathered around us." Margaret pops up in the flesh, telling her that she is that will bleed the daughters of Salem. "Bleed us a king," she growls, seeing Heidi now has that same Coven symbol on her forehead. "Bleed us a king," Margaret repeats, and she's back to the past, seeing the end outcome for the Coven. There's 6 grave markers along with a sign reading, "Here be witches." She tells her to breed them a king once more, and Heidi comes to back in bed. Sounds like you're making the Antichrist, Heidi. Heidi starts Wednesday with a lovely walk through the park, the leaves falling around her. She wanders into a cemetery, spotting a chapel. She takes a seat at a pew, and a father enters shrouded in shadow. He does a prayer and only then notices Heidi sitting there. He asks why she's here, and she replies she just wanted to take a seat for a minute, also probably worried about all the Satan talk lately. She's worried that she's intruding, and the father comforts her they never close here. God is always open and ready to listen. He joins her on the bench, and Heidi sighs she just needs a place to sit and think, and he concurs this is a great place for that. Then things get weird as he starts rubbing her shoulders, and he grabs her arm aggressively, seething that she has to understand there's a war raging in heaven, and you know God doesn't spare angels when they send, it's straight to hell for them. He unzips his pants, yelling, "Only I can save you," and shoves her head toward his crotch. Oh, Robbie, you just can't help yourself, can you? He blusters about how she must understand what the Lord has done for her, and how he has supreme mercy over her soul. He starts gurgling up black goo, and Heidi snaps back to reality, the father saying that she fell asleep. Freaked, she bolts out of there, and yeah, it doesn't look like God is going to be lending a hand in her increasingly desperate situation. She smokes a butt to hopefully calm her nerves, but there is no reprieve. An ashy-faced guy rolls up walking a goat, and a voice coos, "We've been waiting for you," and the guy is gone. Fuck, she grumbles to herself, worried that she's losing her mind, and the dude reappears for a nice jump. Bah! At home, Francis digs furiously through his books on witches and finds one featuring pages of Hawthorne's diary. We then pick up back when Margaret and her coven met their fates. The women are all screaming, surrounded by lit torches. They are being judged as being guilty of witchcraft along with accepting the devil, and Margaret defiantly spits and cackles, unwavering even with death moments away. They get her shackled into the contraption, and the sisters all scream, burning in horror. She finally looks shaken as the flames consume them all and the screaming stops. Margaret is last, and she can't help but laugh as the fire tickles her body to death. Francis thinks he's found a connection and shouts for Alicia's help. After getting her out of the tub, he wants her to play some music from the book and learns that it was Hawthorne himself who first referred to the witches as the Lords of Salem. And as Heidi said, the music came directly from the Lords, meaning someone is still working in their stead now. She plays the notes on the page, and wouldn't you know it, it's the exact same song from the record. As was mentioned earlier in the diary, the witches had music that was driving Hawthorne mad, and we've already seen how that song can affect people, women in particular. Now word from this week's sponsor, Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. We all probably have way too many subscriptions nowadays to keep track of, and it's hard to even remember what all you're still paying for. In my case, I have probably tried every single streaming service out there and wound up with a ton of subs that I didn't even use. Those free trials certainly get you when you forget about them. That's why Rocket Money is perfect for me. It shows all of my various subscriptions in an easy to digest way, so I can see exactly where all my money is going. And canceling unwanted ones couldn't be easier. Just a few button presses and boom, you're done. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. So stop wasting your time on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/ending. That's rocketmoney.com/ending. rocketmoney.com/ending. At the station, the Hermans are doing their shock jock shtick, making jokes about Whitey's grandma. Heidi barges in, and they give her grief for being late. She hopes to avoid any more witchery, but no such luck. They have an announcement. The Lords are coming to Salem for one night only, and they've got all the tickets. The show is free. They play the tune again, and Heidi is launched back into history. The women chanting, "The Spirit of Salem, feel the sounds to our Master of the Lords." Heidi starts coughing. "Open the gates of hell and come forth," they chant. Heidi keeps hacking to the Herman's concern, and she rushes from the booth. Whitey attempts to talk to her, offering that he's here, but she doesn't budge, continuing to sob in the bathroom stall. Later at home, she mindlessly watches a little toy do its spinning thing. They're squeaking out in the hall, and several rats round the corner. The toy suddenly stops, and the rats march right over to Unit 5. Francis managed to track down the dude who wrote that Hawthorne book, hoping that he can provide some more answers. He asks if he has the complete diary himself, and he does not, but he has read the whole thing enough to be familiar. He reveals that Hawthorne was obsessed with Margaret Morgan and her Coven of Six, which he dubbed the Lords of Salem way back when. He thought they were out in the nearby woods and making music that could possess the souls of the local women. Well, there you go. Hawthorne was able to wrangle the Coven up and took them out, which is where the diary ends. There's something even more important mentioned, Margaret's curse, which he doesn't believe believe is real by his chuckle. According to the diary, while Margaret was being burned to a crisp, she put a curse on the females of Salem, dooming them to forever death on the daughters of daughters. The idea being that somewhere through the bloodline they will be able to spawn Satan's child, which will take over the earth. Whatever that means, he laughs. Yeah, seems pretty obvious what their plan now is regarding Heidi. She heads to Whitey's in hope of some refuge, and he's concerned that she's using again. He has become suspicious after her behavior at the station, calling it freaky. Freaky, she fires back, you don't know the half of it. She spills that she thinks the Lord's record is messing with her, and before she can continue, starts coughing again. When seeing that she's hacked up blood, Whitey calls 911, and a bunch more rock dudes appear in doctor's uniforms. They touch Whitey's neck, and he instantly collapses. They then descend upon her, and she's teleported to an operating room. They reach deep into her stomach, really digging around in there. After some effort, they pull out a weird, wriggling demon creature. Heidi wakes up terrified and shaking in her bed, now really getting the witch's plan here. She downs some more aspirin and rocks back and forth, crying to herself. On the mural on the wall, the guys start bleeding from their eyes and mouths, whispering her name repeatedly. All this sends Heidi to her limits, and she returns to drugs to deal with her increasing trauma. Heidi starts her Friday getting high and listening to more language lessons, coughing back her recitations through the smoke. Things start getting real loosey-goosey, and she passes out. She's brought back to someone knocking at her door, and it's the three sisters. Lacey says that she thought she could use some company, and isn't looking so good. They offer they have some lovely tea and scones, Sunny chimes in excitedly. Frances does some more research into Heidi's lineage, and is shocked to discover that she's a direct descendant of Jonathan Hawthorne himself. Also meaning that Margaret's curse was indeed real and is about to come to fruition. He tries to call the apartment, but Megan gives him the brush off. They then finally drop the nice old lady act, obviously they're witches, plopping Heidi into a wheelchair. She's rolled over to Unit 5, the women praying to spit on the Book of Lies and what have you. She appeals to Satan to guide Heidi. She's still in the shackles of her oppressor. Help her break free from the tyrant's way. They raise their hands, chanting, "You are the dragon, Lord Satan," and draw that same Coven symbol with chalk right outside the door. It opens for them, hearing angelic music within, and it now appears to resemble an opulent church inside. Heidi continues walking, now donned in white face paint, and approaches a figure at the top of the stairs. The weird little butterball guy holds out his arms, and I'm like, that thing is Satan? Might honestly be the weirdest interpretation in movies ever. He starts shrieking, and tentacles emerge and go right into her hands. They wriggle violently for a moment, and she drops them, Satan howling. The sisters all wait outside the door patiently for her to return. When she does, they all smile warmly. They then get her tucked into bed, and the little pot-bellied Lucifer clomps in, staring at her sleeping. Uh-oh, late night visit from the devil. Whitey is growing even more worried about Heidi and gives her a call to check in. She's pretty vacant in her replies, and he asks her to meet up before the Lord's show tonight. She repeatedly rebuffs him and starts to hang up. He proceeds to pour his heart out. He knows in the past that he didn't understand. He admits he might not now either, but either way, he's here for whatever she needs. She knows. She always knows, Heidi replies dryly. Lacey is watching over the call and inquires if she loves him. Yeah, she admits quietly and starts getting upset. Frances too tries to contact Heidi and meets Lacey outside the building. She fibs that she has stepped out and invites him to wait at their place. They ask some personal questions and learn that he has no children. She goes off. That's understandable. Few have anything of substance. Born on rare occasions, a special child appears. We get what she means, but Frances has no clue, laughing that he never thought of it like that. He just didn't like the idea of changing dirty diapers. They want to know why he's here, and he reveals all about the Lord's record. At that, Lace sends Sunny to fetch the sugar, so to speak. She toys with him a bit more, saying that he strikes her as a man who would normally mind his own business. I do I? He laughs. Why is that? She's not laughing, sternly wondering if something is funny here. She turns accusatory, claiming that he's here to get inside Heidi's head and fuck her brain. He's come to stick his nosy cock in her head and fuck her brain, right? Best line in the movie award. Frances is ready to split, and Sunny knocks him to the floor with a frying pan. She finds his book, calling it her favorite fairy tale, full of cunty witches and the supposedly heroic deeds of Hawthorne. She barks for Sunny, and she continues bashing him to death with the pan. Heidi can feel it in her room, and they keep bashing him until he is no more. Later, he's totally bled out on the floor, and they sigh that it's such a waste of a good man. He was never going to be able to stop anything. Fate versus destiny. Unfazed, Megan asks if anyone wants some more tea. Lovely, they all agree. Out in the hall, the lamps are shaken again, and a loud demonic growl is heard. Whitey ventures to the apartments, and the sisters are waiting on the stairs. They try to keep him from passing by, but he refuses to relent. He knocks on the door, her room now bathed in red, with a weird nun lady creature watching over her, and Heidi's ass crack is hanging out for some reason. Rob is all, yeah, honey, let's see that sweet can again. It's important for the scene, I promise. weirdo. She hobbles through the door and is shocked to see Whitey. She reminds him that she told him not to come here, and he takes her in his arms, causing Heidi to immediately break down. Lacey shows up, and he tries to ask her what's going on. She begs for him to just wait outside and closes the door. Lacey extends a hand, telling him to come along, son. At the Lord show, as in exactly where the witches want Heidi, she arrives in bad shape along with Whitey. Heidi knows that her fate is sealed at this point, squeaking bye to the Hermans before vanishing inside the theater. The curtain rises on stage, giving way to blistering white light. The sisters are there and fall to their knees, praying for their Lord to hear them, as they are ready to bring his precious child into the world. Satan, come to us, they plead, seeing Heidi poised up on the balcony. Light dances. As others join them, Margaret and her coven, they proclaim to taste the foul stench of your ancestors rotting in the folds of the filth between your legs. The blood on your death shall be the eternity of our resurrection, sounding like all those possessed women are about to be sacrificed. She calls Heidi the one they've been waiting for. The Lord's signature tune kicks on, and the crowd all rise, walking through the aisles. Heidi starts removing her jacket and glasses, followed by all the others stripping down naked. And Margaret has herself a bone violin of sorts. I like that. Heidi appears in another room with the same Voyage to the Moon wall mural from her apartment, along with a light-up couch covered in blood. A voice narrates that each day on this earth may we grow ever stronger in your wisdom and love for him. A high-pitched ringing comes on, assaulting Heidi's ears. A group of naked ladies, flanked by a priest demon dude, show up, the voice continuing, the devils of this earth will rattle our coffins with cloven hooves. There's more of the devil priest guys there who are, rubbing their bloody members. Things starting to get really weird here, so much for that restraint, zombie. The voice continues that their saved bodies will rise again, free and glorious when Christ comes. If you lose the battle with temptation and you choose to rise the goat, your fate will forevermore be washed in the rivers of death. Seeing Heidi doing just that. Ride that goat, lady. The Coven is now all in furs with Heidi on the ground. They inform her, Lord Satan took you to the mill of the grave so that you should thus become the bread and the blood of revelation and revulsion. They speak in tongues while the women rub all over her body. Blood starts trickling from Heidi's lady parts, and the witches rub it all over her skin along with themselves. They then extract a small wiggling demon thing with a bunch of tentacles and stuff, all the witches looking overjoyed. It worked! Huzzah! After hundreds of years, they finally got their Satan baby, all thanks to Margaret's curse. It would only work with someone in the Hawthorne lineage. Margaret cradles the freak baby creature, flames dancing behind her. We fade back to the sisters huddled and praying, and big smiles overtake their faces. Heidi looks quite angelic, with milky white eyes in a weird crowd. We see she's standing atop a pile of the possessed women's bodies, holding her arms outstretched quite majestically. Poor Heidi didn't really have a chance here, harkening back to what Megan was saying on fate versus destiny. In her case, this was all predetermined, and ultimately things played out exactly as they were meant to. We're then treated to a moment in happier times with Heidi with her pup in the park, a sort of sad reminder considering where she winds up. Quite a fall. A news report fills us in on the aftermath. 32 dead bodies were found at the theater, all members of the Salem Historical Lifer Society, as in also descendants of the original Coven. Presumably the same goes for the sisters that put this whole thing together. As for Heidi, however, there are no leads in her disappearance, and no evidence was found that she was amongst the victims. Also no mention of the sisters either, and I wager based on all those various prayers that they have sort of transcended beyond our mortal plane, and maybe now reside in that weird satanic realm in Unit 5. Regardless, they pulled their plan off without a hitch, and the world is now pretty much doomed thanks to Satan baby that has born and will soon take over the world. Ah well. That wraps things up for this Ending Explain on the Lords of Salem, but why not click over there and keep the explaining going. Thanks for watching FoundFlix, see you next time.